Hey guys, this is Brian and welcome to my new channel, Fedora Fox. This channel is mainly for me to keep track of my progress with different labs and build a portfolio as I work my way into cybersecurity. Right now I've got my A+, and I'm currently studying for my CCNA, so I'll mainly be focusing on networking until I pass my exam. This channel isn't necessarily designed to be a training resource since I'm still learning myself, but if you're studying for your CCNA too, feel free to follow along with these labs. I'll also leave a link to Jeremy's IT lab where you can check out his channel and download any of his free resources, which I will be using today. There will also be no cuts to this video, so you'll see any of my mistakes and how I troubleshoot them. Alright, so we're going to be starting on day 11, configuring static routes, and this would be pretty much the first lab where you start configuring and creating routes, so this is a good starting off point for this channel. And we can go through the instructions. All devices have no pre-configurations. Configure the PCs and routers according to the network diagram, host names, IP addresses, etc. Remember to configure the gateway on the PCs. You don't have to configure the switches. And number 2 is configure static routes on the routers to enable PC1 to successfully ping PC2. Alright. So we'll start with setting up the gateway for PC1 and configuring its IP address. So we'll start in config and we'll start with the default gateway. It's going to be this port here, port G01 on this router, and it's going to be .254 in the 192.168.1.0-24 network. So we're going to do 192.168.1.254. Now we're going to go to interface and we're going to set the address for the PC, which is .1. It's going to be 192.168.1.1 and the subnet mask of -24, which is 255.255.255.0, which it auto-filled. If it's something different, we would have to edit this, but it auto-filled, so it's all good. So now that this is set up, we can start on router 1. We'll go to the CLI and we'll start with enable and configure terminal. And we'll start with the host name. Make this R1 so that we know which router we're going to be working on. And then we can start with ports G01 and G00. We'll start with interface range G0-1 or -0 through 1, and we can do no shut to turn these on, and we can start setting the IP for G01. So as we set up on PC1, it's going to be .254 for the IP address, and it's going to be IP address 192.168.1.254 and the subnet mask of -24, which in Cisco we are going to have to put the whole net mask, which is 255.255.255.0. And now we can start. Actually, before we go to G00, let's create a description for this so that we know exactly what this port goes to. So we can do to PC1. So now we can go to G00. And we do that by going to interface G00. And we can set the IP address. It's going to be in this network here, this 192.168.12.0-24, and it's going to be .1. So it's going to be 192.168.12.1, and the subnet mask is going to be -24, which is 255.255.255.0, and we can set the description for this, which would be connected to router 2. And we can check our interfaces with do show IP interface brief. and we can see that G00 is okay. G00 is up down because router 2 port G00 isn't enabled yet, so it's going to show down, and G01 is up up. So if we go to router 2, enable, configure terminal, and I can just do this real quick to show you. If we go to interface G0-0, no shut to enable it. If we go back to router 1 and we run this do show IP interface brief, we see that the protocol is now up because this port is now enabled. So now let's go back to router 2. So since we're already here, we can set the IP address of port G00 on router 2, which is going to be this network, .2. So 192.168.12.2, and a subnet mask of 24. So 255.255.255.0. And we can set the description for connected to router 1. Now we can start on port or interface G0-0 on router 2. G0-1. Set the IP address, and it's going to be in a different network. It's going to be .2. And all of these are going to have the same net mask. So they're all going to be 255.255.255.0. And just make sure that it's correct. It is. And I have to do no shut because I didn't enable it yet. And we can now create the description. This is going to be connected to router 3. We can do a do show IP interface brief, and we have both interfaces with each corresponding IP address. You can see this is .12.2 and this is .13.2. So now we can start on router 3. Same thing as router 1 and 2. Enable, configure terminal. You can set the host name to R3, and we can just do both interfaces at the same time. No shut. Then we can go back to interface G00. Set the IP for that one, which is going to be in this network. It's going to be .3. You can create the description. So G00 is connected to router 2. And now we can start on interface G0-1. And as we can see, this is going to be the default gateway for PC2. We can create the description. Let's check our interfaces. And it looks like we're good. So now we can set the default gateway for PC2 as well as the IP address. And as I said before, the default gateway is going to be G0-1 on router 3, which is going to be this .254. And the IP address is going to be .1 of this network. And it auto-completes to the -24. All right, so now we have all the host names, IP addresses set up for all the devices that require it. So now we can start on the routing. So we'll go back to router 1, go to exit. It's going to be IP route. And then from here, anything that leaves this router, if we wanted to get to this network, this 192.168.3.0 network, the next hop is going to be to interface G00 on router 2. So that's going to be 2.168.3.0, 255.255.0. So that's going to be this network, and we're setting the next hop to be this interface, which would be 192.168.12.2. All right, and there is going to be 2 routes for router 2, one going to 168.1.0 and 168.3.0. So we can go to exit, IP route, and then we can create the one for 168.3.0 first. So it'll be 192.168.3.0. And if we want to get to this network, the next hop is going to be interface G0-0 on router 3, which is this 192.168.13.3. And now we want a route to be able to get to this 168.1 network. And from router 2 to get to this network, we'll have to go to interface G00, which would be .1 in the 192.168.12.0 network. And lastly, we have to set up router 3, and we only have to set it up to route to this network, this 168.1. So we can go to exit, IP route, 0. And the next hop would be this network, .2. And now we can check the routing table. Do show IP route, and we can see the static address or the static route going to this network via this IP address, which would be port interface G0-0 on router 2. If we look here, show IP route, we can see both of the static IP address, both of the static routes to each of the networks. And for router 1, we can see the static route to the 168.3 network via this IP address. So now let's test it out and make sure everything is set up correctly by pinging 192.168.1.1, which would be PC1 from PC2. So we'll do ping 192.168.1.1. Give it a few seconds. So it looks like it took a little minute for the ARP to finish, but the last ping did go through. So now if we do it again, we should receive all 4 pings. Let's try it one more time. Yep, all 4. And now we can do the same for PC1. And since ARP did finish with the ping from PC2 to PC1, it already knows the route to get to this network. And we can do a simulation to see what that would look like. It's going from router 1, it's going from router 3 to 2 to 1 to PC1 and all the way back. And we can see that ping is complete. And that is the first lab that we're going to be doing on this channel. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and feel free to put any comments on how I can improve this for you guys, and I'll see you guys next time.